Hi Year 12, we are looking at Act 4, Scene 4 of Hamlet. You should have noticed by now that Act 4 is characterised by a lot of short, fast scenes. This is because the catalysts for the action have already taken place and the thought processes for the action have already taken place. So now we really have most of the action of the play. Act 4, Scene 4 has an important soliloquy where Hamlet develops pretty significantly. This scene, you'll notice, takes place on a plain, so it's away from the castle really for the first time. So this scene starts with Fortinbras, the nephew of the King of Norway. Don't forget, at the very beginning of the play, he was trying to take back the throne. He was raising arms against Claudius, the new King of Denmark, and Claudius shut it down very quickly. So Fortinbras is just double checking that it's still okay with Claudius, that he can take his army through Norway in order to get to Finland. You'll notice that he uses a very respectful tone, so by his license he craves the carrying out of the promise, and then if the Majesty doesn't mind, otherwise he's happy to express his duty, he's happy to go and see Claudius and speak for himself. So you can see that the tone has changed significantly since the uprising and rebellious tone at the beginning of the play. So then we have Hamlet enter with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Don't forget, they are on their way to England, where we know that Claudius has asked the ambassadors of England that once they get there to kill Hamlet. And Hamlet thinks that he's just going to get the tribute from England. So Hamlet wants to know who the army belongs to. They're going to fight against Poland. And Hamlet asks, are they going to fight all of Poland, or are they fighting just one little part? And the captain says, it's a really dreadful part of land. The whole point of this army is to win a small patch of land that's a very poor quality, and it really doesn't have any value. So this sets Hamlet off. Hamlet says, what's the point? Why would Poland try to keep a piece of land that's worthless? And the captain says, no, there's already soldiers there. And then Hamlet uses exaggeration. He says 2,000 souls, so 2,000 dead soldiers, and 20,000 ducats, $20,000. We'll not debate the question of this straw. So he's saying that the fight over the land will never really be over. People will always be fighting back and forth over the land. And he says that this battle shows no cause without why the man dies. So people are losing their life for absolutely nothing. Fortinbras is fighting a meaningless battle because the land isn't worth anything. So then Hamlet gets rid of the captain, and then he gets rid of Rosencrantz so that he can have his soliloquy. So this is the how all occasions do inform against me soliloquy. So basically he starts off by saying that everything that keeps happening, not only does it prevent him from getting his revenge, it also spurs him on and reminds him that he really should be getting revenge, that it's worthwhile. He sees parallels between his situation trying to get revenge against Claudius and the situation around him where Fortinbras is trying to get back land that was taken from Norway in the past. So Fortinbras's action over something that's meaningless emphasises Hamlet's inaction over something that's actually quite important. So then Hamlet has the question, what is a man if his chief good and market of his time be but to sleep and feed? So he's asking, what's the point of existence if all we do is sleep and eat? And he says, that just makes us like an animal. So he's saying that it's important to act. If you don't act, then you're nothing more than an animal. So notice the disparaging tone there on no more. So then he alludes to God, so he that made us with such large discourse meaning intellect and the reason, looking before and after, gave us not that capability and godlike reason to fuss in us unused. So God didn't give us a brain for us not to use it. Then he says, well, I haven't done anything yet, and whether that's because I'm basically an animal and I'm oblivious to the fact that I should be acting, or whether I'm a coward because I'm thinking too much on the act of killing someone. And in all honesty, I only really haven't acted one part out of wisdom, but 3 parts were really cowardly. So Hamlet is getting down on himself again, being quite negative about the fact that he hasn't acted. And he's saying, well, all of my thoughts, all of my reasoning on the topic of whether or not I should kill Claudius and when the right time is to kill Claudius, really that boils down to cowardice. And it's animal-like, because only animals don't act. And then he says, I do not know why yet I live to say this thing's to do. So he's saying, why haven't I done it? I've said it should be done. I have the will and the strength to carry it out, but I still haven't done it. And then he accumulates there all of the reasons why he should have done it by now. And then he adds to that there are examples as obvious as the earth around him. So he's pointing out the fact that the army that's around him right now is an example that shows him that he should be getting his revenge. So he's comparing himself to Fortinbras here. So he's saying, look at this enormous, significant army, and he's being positive about Fortinbras. He says, led by a delicate and tender prince. So there are positive qualities associated with Fortinbras. And he says that the ambition that Fortinbras has to try and win back this land is divine. So it's a positive there. He's saying that it's a good thing to have a drive to act, to push yourself forward. He says that the soldiers here make mouths at the invisible event. The invisible event is death, and so making mouths at it like they're making fun of it, they don't care about it. And so they're exposing their own lives, which are mortal and unsure, to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. So he's basically saying in that line there that action is always worthwhile, even if it's only for an eggshell. So that metaphor of acting for an eggshell diminishes the value of Fortinbras's fight, but that increases his valour. So it's important to fight even if the reason why you're fighting isn't that significant. So he says, to be great is not to stir without great argument, but to find quarrel in a straw when honour's at the stake. So up until now, he's been avoiding fighting in order to try to be great. He's been trying to prove that there is a great argument to support him killing Claudius, and that great argument is that Claudius definitely has committed the crime of killing his father. And now he's saying, do you know what? It actually isn't about whether I have just cause. What matters is that my honour is at stake. And he goes on to say how his honour is at stake. And his honour is at stake because his father has been killed and his mother's honour and virtue has been stained by being tricked into associating with the killer of her first husband. And then he goes on to say that his reason and his blood, so both his emotions and his intellect, have been fired up over this. And then he goes on to say that it's shameful to him that Fortinbras's men are all willing to act over something as small as this worthless piece of land when he won't act over all of those reasons to kill Claudius. And you can see he exaggerates here the number of men. So in his previous statement, he said that there were 2,000 men and 20,000 ducats, and now he's exaggerated that into 20,000 men. So he's got this admiration of Fortinbras despite or even really because of the futility of what they're doing. So then it says that these soldiers are going to their graves like beds. So notice that that simile is calling back to the to be or not to be soliloquy, where we see death as a positive thing and relating it back to the idea of sleeping and resting. So he says that these soldiers are willing to fight for a plot where it's actually the land that they're fighting for isn't actually big enough to bury all of the men who'll die fighting over it. And then he ends with an exclamation after he's had that thought about how worthy these other men are for fighting over something so insignificant. And his rhyming couplet at the end indicates his strong resolution. From now on, my reasoning, my thought process, my intellect will be used only in action, or it won't have worth. So he's saying that if you don't follow up your thoughts with action, your thoughts become completely meaningless. So he's reached a brand new decision that's quite groundbreaking about how he's going to behave about revenge. It's not just about revenge. Notice that he hasn't made it really specific about revenge. He's really just talking about the division between thought and action, and deciding that there shouldn't be a division, that you should think, but then you should use those thoughts to carry through into action. Okay.